This is William Sadler, and you're listening to NOLA Film Scene.
NOLA Film Scene.
Hello. Welcome to NOLA Film Scene with TJ and Plato.
I'm TJ.
And as always, I'm Plato.
And I am so thrilled to have our guest here. We met a while ago on a set, which we can't talk about right now because of SAG strike, but eventually we will. With the great William Sadler. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you? It's good to be here. Wasn't that the
Yes, sir. You came down to our part of the world?
A couple years ago.
Yeah. You started me basically on the journey towards lines, towards speaking parts. I had started with Kevin Smith. That was background in one of his movies. And I did a few other background things. And that was a lot of fun. And I loved it. And then I was your photo double, and I was there for like a week and a half. And just, I guess I saw a little more behind the scenes than background does. And then the bug bit me.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. It's not an easy road. You saved my life there, though, down in New Orleans, as I recall.
Yes, sir.
I think it's safe to say they had a hurricane like the week before I got there, and it was August in New Orleans.
Yes,
and I'm wearing these Reaper robes,
Yeah, thick.
60 pounds of black cloth and boots and makeup. And
right.
5-inch platform boots.
It was the sweatiest thing I've ever done in my life. It was great. But having you to step in and save my butt so this old guy could sit down. And
yes.
I had a team of people with fans lift up my skirt and try. I have some embarrassing looking photographs.
We've got a few we're going to blackmail you with. No, I'm just kidding.
So you got the bug.
I did. I started taking acting lessons with Jim Gleason, who's local. He's our SAG president. I say ours, even though I haven't made it in the SAG yet. And then improv, voice acting during the pandemic with people like Michael Bell and Charlie Adler, Debbie Derryberry, and then now even some singing. Anything. Oh, and I took a theatrical combat class. I'm looking up to my light. I was looking up to my light instead of the camera. So anything I get my hands on, yeah.
Well, that's very cool. That's very cool. I would suggest that for anybody who's thinking about approaching this career as a career. Mm-hmm. Get some training.
Yes, sir.
I mean, there's lots of sort of happy amateur groups out there, and you can get your rocks off in community theater or high school or college plays, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're serious about going further, there's enough about the craft that I think anyway, my opinion.
Totally agree.
I did undergraduate for 4 years, and then I got an MFA at Cornell in acting. I spent 2 years at Cornell having my acting chops torn apart by these teachers and the rest of the class.
Yeah.
It was devastating. I thought I knew what I was doing, and they were like, no matter what I did, it was, they found things to pick at. And then there was like this joyful discovery when I got out and got my first job. And I'm like, I do a scene in rehearsal and I'm looking around where there's no one yelling at me or, there's not a room full of people saying, why'd you do it that way? That was dopey.
Once you're in, they're like, oh, that's so great. And you're like, what? You like me?
And you get paid for it. Then it's like,
money's good. Crafty's better.
The first paying job I had was playing Hamlet at the Colorado Shakespeare Festival. And it was right between those 2 years at Cornell. In that summer, I drove from Cornell, Ithaca, New York, all the way to Colorado with my girlfriend. And I played Hamlet. And that's where I think they paid me $500 for the whole summer. Oof. It was like, it was theater at its best.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was like this weight got lifted off of me. It's just do the work, all of a sudden it was all fun again, and I was making like $7 a night or something for this.
It wasn't bad back in the day, huh? It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
Back in the day, I could afford Earth shoes.
Bill, what? I get to call you Bill. I know. It's William Sadler. I've been a fan of yours for years, and he's great. And then we met, and you told me on set, call me Bill, and I still couldn't do it. And it took us like a year after. We just talked a little while, on a video call before this, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. Bill. And you're like, what are you talking about? I said, oh, no, it's hard for me. So.
You're right. Well, I'm a monster of that. No.
I'm sorry.
I grew up being Bill. And I grew up being Billy. And then as I got older, it was Bill. And then during Die Hard 2, the filming, Franco Nero, the other villain, one night said, why, he's Italian. Why you are Bill? No one is going to pay to see Bill. You should be William. It's big. It's William Sadler. And it was like the second or third movie I'd done. Yeah. I thought, oh, okay. So I changed it to William, and I spend my whole life telling people, just call me Bill. Well, I can't get used to William.
I understand. So
I get it too. I use a stage name because my name is very common. My real name is Thomas. It's Thomas Smith. And it's so common to distinguish myself. I'm using my mother's maiden name of Sebastian, and TJ is a family nickname. It's my dad's and a variation of my middle name. So that's to distinguish from all the other Thomas Smiths out there. Is why I did
that. There are a few?
Yes. On IMDb, there are a lot of different Thomas Smiths. So I didn't want to use a Roman numeral after my name to be distinguished.
You're an actor as well.
I am.
Outstanding. So you're taking lessons, Brian. It sounds like you're hot on the trail.
I am. And if I haven't sent you the movie, I will. I did an independent movie where I played Death. I think we've talked about it a few times. And I had a few lines. And like you were saying in your classes, when you got into the thing, you felt like an actor and you finally could say it and you got to experience it. For me, being in that class, Jim Gleason's class is great. It's every week. And he's not nitpicky, but he is, hey, how about this? So in the week to week, you don't see the improvement. But doing that movie, being in a movie with line, and I took some other Zoom classes, and Mahoney's self-tape, and then Charlie Adler's voice acting, 2 each. So it's like 6 weeks here, 6 weeks there. But there was a break in between. So between those, I did that movie. And then when I came to the second class for each of them, first day, they went, you have improved so much. You could see it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay. So I finally felt like an actor instead of a student.
Do you credit that to the classes, or do you credit that to actually getting in front of a camera and doing the gig?
Both.
Where you actually have to do it. Yeah. Because that's a place where the learning happens. You still make mistakes.
Yeah.
But the learning happens quickly when you're on stage, in a play or you're in rehearsals. That's what I found anyway. I learned a lot. I learned a lot in the classes and so on. But then I moved to New York and spent 11 years doing theater. And there's the lessons that you learn out when you're butting your head again, when you're actually in the mix, actually doing it. They're expensive lessons. I mean, you screw up badly at an audition, and there's nothing like doing it to get your feet under you and feel like, I can do this. And that confidence, it's just a huge thing. I mean, I guess some people may be born with a sort of innate confidence.
Yeah.
And they can stand in a room and here I am.
Go to town like that. Yeah.
The rest of us sort of have to earn that a bit.
Yeah.
And over the years, it became, I got better. Like I said, the lessons in front of audiences, the lessons in rehearsals, the mistakes that you make out in the real world teach you. It's like learning to cook.
Yeah.
When everybody sits down and eats the meal, it's like the rubber has hit the road.
Yes, sir. So, Bill, we've been asking people about their inspiration. Can you remember what started you on the path towards acting? You said you went to college, but before that, is there a point where you can go, this is where I decided I wanted to do this?
I had an English teacher in high school. I was doing music before that. I was in a garage band called the Night Riders back in Orchard Park, where I grew up, just south of Buffalo.
Sweet.
Before that, I was in a folk band doing the hootenanny stuff. This was back in the, early 60s, mid 60s. Oh, for a couple of years there, I was doing stand-up comedy, playing the banjo and telling jokes around Buffalo. So I kept trying to get on stage. And finally, this English teacher named Dan Larkin, my high school, why don't you try out for the play? Try out for the senior play. We're doing Harvey, about the guy who talks to an imaginary rabbit.
Yes.
And he's funny and he's charming. And I did it. And I was, much like yourself, I was like,
lightning.
I got a taste of it, and it was success. It was a successful run in the play in high school, but it also whet my appetite for. And he said there's a community theater group that he was a member of in Amherst, the Amherst Players in Buffalo, and they were doing a play called The Subject Was Roses, and it's this Pulitzer Prize winning drama, 3 characters, a mother, a father, and this young man who's come back from the army and confronts his drunken, abusive father. And I guess I was 18 at the time, but the writing was so intense, and the process of figuring out how, working backwards from this is what he's saying, and you're always working backwards. Well, how would you have to feel to say that to somebody, to let yourself in? And I was blown away. I was just, and I found I could submerge myself in a character and kind of come alive on stage. And the director, his name was Bob Schultz, said, "What are you doing after high school?" Because I was still in high school. Yeah. I don't know. The Vietnam War was raging, and you could get a student deferment if you went to college. So I'm going to go to Buff State and study industrial engineering and be a shop teacher. Wow. And Bob Schultz looked at me and he said, "You mind if I make a phone call or two?" And he called the head of the drama department at Geneseo, the State University College at Geneseo, where he had just graduated. And he said, "I got this kid. I think he'd be a good match for your program. And I think he would get a lot out of it." And so he put me in a car, drove me to Geneseo, and introduced me to the head of the drama department. We saw a play. We got drunk. We drove home. And that was it. That's where I went and spent 4 years. That was the beginning of it. But that was the inspiration. It was, it's remarkable. I can point to this one English teacher who said, why don't you try out for this play? Yeah. I think you might be good at it. And it was like all he did was point to the door. And I guess I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was really as dumb as a sack of hammers. But then I became enamored of the whole
process.
I started looking at movies differently. My heroes were like George C. Scott. And remember, this is the 60s and 70s, and they're like Robert Duvall and Al Pacino, and The Godfather came out just as I was in college. All of us actors went to see it and just spent the next 2 weeks mumbling and trying to be Marlon Brando. Yeah. So that's sort of how it all began. I didn't have any other plan. I didn't.
Something happened, and like a duck to water, you started swimming. You found
Yeah. And my father, it's funny, my dad said he insisted that I get a teaching degree while I was at Geneseo in case this acting thing doesn't work out.
Right.
And which was smart. It was because it doesn't a lot of times, it could have very easily been, 5-6 years down the road. I'm going, oh, this blows. I have to do something else. Yeah. But that wasn't the case. I had fallen into the thing that I wanted to do.
It's excellent. And you mentioned that you started with music, and we've been talking a little bit. I've heard your album, The Kitchen Tapes, and I used to watch the YouTube videos, and I'm amazed at what you bring.
Thank you.
Talking to My Baby, the first song, and then Lion Sack of Shit, the last song of my 2 favorites.
One of my all-time favorite.
Yeah, those are great. And Key of C, Talk to My Baby, feels pure blue.
Yeah.
I mean, the second song too. I'm sorry. And they're different categories, almost folksy in some, and singer-songwriter maybe. Like I couldn't just pin you down to one thing. Sorry to interrupt you. You can go as whatever you were going to say, but also, how would you describe yourself, your music?
Well, I'm sort of pretty late to the game, I suppose, at this age to be recording these things. But I started writing songs back in college. I've always been making up songs. I never took it seriously. And then somewhere in the 90s, I was living in LA for 15 years or something. And I started doing coffee houses and open mics and things. And I wrote a lot of these songs in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And they've just been kicking around, like Where the Music Has Gone and Doctor of Love.
Yeah.
Key of C was one of the first things I wrote because I'm a pretty mediocre player. I've never really studied. There's every guitar player I know is better than I am.
Right.
But the pandemic happened and I had suddenly I'm stuck at home and I've got all this time and all these songs. And I had been doing open mics here until the pandemic. And I started recording them with a friend of mine named Matt Kulowitz, who I was doing the Stephen Colbert, Our Cartoon President with.
Oh, wow.
He was the sound engineer and he set me up with a microphone and the whole thing at my house. And he would, through the internet, he would get on my computer
Mm-hmm.
and hit record. And I would play and sing and he would take it and, fiddle with it, make it sound better. And then we get this Denny Bonet, this violin player. She would drop her violin on it. And John Colbert, wonderful piano player, used to play with John Lennon. He would drop a little, piano under things.
Yeah.
And it was all of a sudden these songs felt real. And, they were like, we're ready for people. Otherwise, they were just going to, they would sit in a drawer and they'd be gone when I'm gone. It would, I felt like I should get these out there. And I had so much fun doing it. The songs at the end of the day, Scott Hull down at Master Disc, and it's a big studio in Peekskill. He did the mastering and putting together. And now I have a CD coming out. I think next week I'm going to start getting boxes of CDs.
Wow.
Of the kitchen tapes. I'm going to autograph every one of them and sell them online. And the money goes to St. Jude's. So
nice.
You can feel good about buy a Christmas present for somebody. Anyway, and I'm already working on the second album.
Nice.
I wanted to do something for St. Jude's.
Yeah.
And from time to time, I've done things for Doctors Without Borders, and there are lots of good, Wounded Warriors. There's tons of really good causes out there, and I've been very fortunate. It doesn't hurt to give back a little.
Yeah. Totally cool. TJ, I've been monopolizing.
And I love doing the songs. That's the really fun part. I play them in my car, and driving down the road, listening to it like it's on the radio or something. Yeah. It's just the biggest kick in the world. And there's this violin and guitar, and it's all balanced, and the piano comes in, and it actually sounds like, like I know what I'm doing.
It's good.
So one of these days, I'm going to take it on the road. I'm going to put together a little band, take it on the road, and see what I can do.
I know a city you should go to.
Oh, yeah? I have to overcome
I was going to say, what I think is really cool is your persona, some of the characters that you've played, where you play the kind of stern bad guy, and then you put out this music. And I think you're a wonderful singer. And to me, it's a contrast of the characters you played and then the music. I found it really incredible.
Well, thank you. That's really good to hear. I have a lot more confidence as an actor than I do as a singer, but I'll take it. I appreciate it.
You should.
I guess I don't try to. I figure as long as I try to be kind of authentic.
Yeah, I think you succeeded.
People seem to enjoy the music, which shouldn't be surprised, I guess. but I still get such a big kick out of the fact that people think that's a great song, or they cover the songs like Key of C. There's a guy in Finland who put out a cover in Finnish.
Wow.
Of my song, The Key of C. He plays the ukulele. It's just sweet. And it's all in Finnish. I can't understand, but I guess it works.
Oh, totally.
Anyway.
And the Key of C with no sharps and flats, that simple scale, and then the joy that you hear when you're singing it, like, I can do it, but I'm not. I'm tricking you people a little,
I was like, no, it was just a fun song about how I learned to play the guitar, because it isn't fancy. And when I try to play a jazzy riff, my hands get stiff, augmented or diminished. Oh, honey lamb, I'm finished. But I can play a song so sweet without those sharps and flats. Mean old dog dogs behave like pussy cats. Republicans begin to dance like Democrats when I play it in the key of ooh-wee.
Yeah, very awesome.
Leon, thank you, Leon Redbone. Thank you.
I got a little bit of Dr. John from you in some of your songs, but he had a kind of more, froggy. Yeah, somebody in the right place. No, but it was still like, really? Oh, okay, I hear that. I didn't know if I wanted to hear that because I felt it.
No, I have the voice that I have.
It's good.
I've been using it for a lot of years. So it's like I said, I grew up loving George C. Scott. Mm-hmm. So that was it was really one of my first inspirations was George C. Scott in Patton,
Yes.
I'd have a much prettier voice if I hadn't spent so many years trying to gruff it up so that it sounded good. The hell am I supposed to tell that boy's parents? He was assassinated in the middle of the night by two of our nurses that couldn't tell him from a goddamn 82-year-old man. Thank you.
Awesome.
You put your hand into a ball of goo that a minute ago was your best friend's face. You'll know what to do. And I just he had me. That was, and I'm sure that it was the drinking, it was like the drinking and the smoking put the gravel in his voice.
Oh, yeah.
I hope I stopped drinking and smoking soon enough.
Oh, your singing sounds good, so I'm going to say yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. TJ, I have been monopolizing the conversation. Do you have any questions for Bill?
I do. So I saw you were talking about getting some education in case the acting thing didn't work out for you.
Right.
Your background shows speech communications.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, Brian and I both are starting to delve into the voice acting. We're both very interested in doing voiceover work. And I'm wondering if that path helped you with some of the voice characters that you do, because you do a lot of different accents. You do the Death's accent is different. And I've heard your Irish accent. And did that path in college help you with developing different accents that you use during performance?
I don't think that the speech communication, like clinical speech therapy and speech communication, helped specifically with that. What probably helped the most was music, because it was my ability to hear and repeat back the sounds that I heard when people spoke with an Irish accent, and where they made their sounds and how they changed the shape of their mouth and the lilting. The music of it is quite different, and everyone, they go up on the end, things like that. I guess I would credit all the music, because I spent so many years, listening to the Beatles and Liverpool accents. And then I used to love Danny Kaye. He was an early influence, and he did all of these funny French accents. And when I stole that. It's a Czechoslovakian accent. And I know that because I stole it from a Czech actor that I did a play with in New York. And his name was Jan Triskin. He's gone now, but thank you, Jan. The play was called New Jerusalem. We did it at the Public Theater back in 78, 79, something like that. Sigourney Weaver was in it.
Wow.
Jan Triskin was. He had this accent. Was so like that. Everything was in this really thick Czechoslovakian accent. Welcome to New Jerusalem. My name is Ranmi Singh. And I thought it was funny. And I heard the music of it. I mimicked it. And then I made it when the time came to audition. I called a casting woman on it, was Karen Ray, and called her office, or I had my agents call her office. I forget which. And I said, I'm thinking of doing an accent. And they said, oh, no, you probably shouldn't do, shouldn't do an accent. But I couldn't help it. I did it anyway.
Yeah.
I just found it's funny by itself. You could hear him read the phone book.
Yeah.
And it's like humorous. And I'm sure that's why I got the job, was because I just went full monkey Czechoslovakian.
Yeah.
You had to get some special makeup to age yourself for that audition too, didn't you?
I did. I did the audition, the one I just described. And it was funny. And I got a call like 3 weeks later from Karen Ray's office. Karen says, Bill, you got to come back in, do the same audition, but they think you're too young. So go to a Halloween store and get some gray and put it in your hair and black out your teeth. And they just think you're too young. I honestly thought that's just gonna look like shit.
Yeah.
And I had just done Die Hard 2, and the makeup man for that, his name was Scott Edo, was in town. And I called him and I told him what was going on. He's come on over. The morning of the audition, I sat in his kitchen in Marina Del Rey, and he did this age makeup on me. And he made, I guess I was 39 or 40 or something about that time. Uh-huh. And he made me like a believable 80, but camera ready, like in close up, you'd look at it and go, oof. And I got in the car and drove to the studio and went in, did the same Czechoslovakian accent but now I was old. And as I left, Karen Ray told me later, she said, one of the producers turned to her and said, he looks a lot older in person. And the rest, as they say, is history. But it was a chance to be funny. And I had played a lot of villains. I had just come off, Die Hard 2 and Hard to Kill and Project X. And it was just like one evil mother after another. And here was a chance to be genuinely silly in the guise of this, this character.
Yeah.
And it was great. To this day, people quote back to me the rap.
Yeah.
You might be a king or a little street sweeper, but sooner or later you dance with the reaper.
Or your don't forget my bot.
Both of which were ad libs, by the way. They're not in the script. Don't overlook my bot. Reaping burns a lot of calories. It was just, once I got into the character, I couldn't shut him up. and it was fun. The first day, they didn't know what to do with the makeup. They didn't know what he should look like. The first day of filming up in Santa Clarita, the first scene was the games, playing the
chess and board games.
Colonel Mustard did it with the candlestick and Battleship.
That lie.
And all this, it was so weird because I'm sure the producers were all sort of gathered around the monitors and the cameras, and they're all watching, sweating, and is this going to work? Is this going to work? And after the first day, they watched the dailies, and then they all backed off and said, "Oh no, I think this is you do it, whatever the fuck you want." just you go, totally. Which was lovely. And that's when I would ad lib or change lines or whatever, or I would respectfully suggest alterations to lines and things.
Right.
Nice.
You've already said this in public, and I won't say how the scene went about, but on the third movie, when you filmed here in New Orleans, you went down basically on the first day, hurt your knee and your wrist.
That's right.
They put out a call. It's mycastingfile.com if anyone wants to know. That's how you get background rules. But it was photo double for death. And I had already been background in the scene earlier, and then I was like, yeah, I want to be. Yeah.
You did. Is that how you got the job? Got the gig?
So I think.
So you did the hopscotch that I couldn't do because I tripped.
Yeah.
They made my robes too long and I tripped. Yeah. That was the first take of the first scene, I think, that I shot down there. I tripped on the robe and almost broke my wrist. And
that's a very interesting thing because I didn't think they used my footage. So
when I believe when you see the hopscotching, I think away from the camera. I believe that's you because I couldn't
complete the act.
I couldn't.
Wow,
I couldn't do it.
I think they put your head on my body because you have your hair and you had the bald wig. So, and we've taken a selfie together, which we could talk about later.
Right.
But your head is rounder and mine's more natural. So it's egg shaped. I also have one ear that sticks out a little bit. You know what I mean?
I didn't notice.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I'm like looking for myself in the movie and going, wait a minute, that ear's not there. So, and even if they did, fantastic. I'm glad I could help. So they had put out the call and I was like, yeah. And I clicked the button. I think he went down on a Tuesday, could have been a Monday. And then on the next day, it's like, okay, they call me. You want to be in it? Yeah. And my schedule was, because I worked overnight graveyard shift, cleaning bars. So I worked overnight, and my wife, we only had one car. So at 7 a.m., I had to get home and then bring her to her work. And then I'd get in the car and I'd go back to work and finish and then go home and then pick her up for the afternoon. So then.
And then you raced to the studio.
Yeah, they send it to me and they said, okay, you want to do it? Yeah, okay, great. And they hang up. It's like, so I start getting my little bag and they call back an hour late. Okay, but we still don't know. I said, this is what I'm going to do. Because anytime I went to set, I would Uber so my wife would have the car. I said, I'm driving to the school. If at any point in this process it shuts down, you tell me, no problem. But for me to get there at a reasonable time, I've got to do this. And they said, okay. And I got a call while we're going. They said, oh, we're going to pay you even if they don't. Give my wife the car, get an Uber, go to a place called The Ranch. And the ranch dropped me off at the wrong spot. It's starting to rain a little bit. I end up in the makeup building. They send me to the trailer. Still don't have the job. And I sit there and I go, here's the shoes. It's 5-inch platform boots. And I have bad ankles. I've twisted my ligaments, pulled them 10 times over my lifetime. And I'm like, oh,
perfect.
Yeah, at least, I don't have to run in them. And they go, no, you're going to play hopscotch.
You have to jump and play hopscotch.
So
and
we ended up
hopscotch.
And I still don't know if I have the job. I go to set, I sit around for a while, and they finally, Bill Corso, the makeup man, one of the PAs, I'm sorry if I've got your crew title wrong. I struggle with that, and I feel bad if I get it wrong. But he brings Bill, hey, Bill, this is Brian. He might be our double. And I stand up, and Bill's like, rubbing his chin. Okay. And he walks away. And I'm like, did I get the job? Still don't know. It's like 4 hours later. I'm like, all right. Finally, they say they're going to bring me into where you were, and the director, Dean. I forgot Dean's last name. He did Galaxy Quest, terrible names. I guess I'll never work with him. So he said, come here. And then, hey, this is the director. Bill, come here. And here you come walking. You didn't have the boots on, and neither did I. He said, oh, and you had the makeup on. So I'm fanboying all over the place. And say if y'all the same height. We stand shoulder to shoulder. And the director's like, I still don't know. What do you think, Bill? And you go, back to back, Brian, like a 70s cop show. So I went, who's Charlie? And they went, okay. And I walked away, and then the PA came in. You got the job.
Good.
Yeah.
That was a fun shoot. And like I said, you saved my ass, I think, more than once. I really did hurt my wrist. My hand swole up. Yeah. And they put them, it's all makeup. They'll make it look, white and dead and so on. The scene where I'm playing the bass and so on, if you look, or when I'm talking to them, they come to the door. And I was in the groove. That whole scene, if you catch a shot of my hand, it looks like a grapefruit. It's like it was all swollen up. Playing that character was such a treat. It was really fun. I mean, it was difficult, and it didn't get any easier with age and the heat in New Orleans. It really didn't. It was one thing to do it, when I was 40. It's quite another thing to do it when you're 70.
Right.
But fortunately, the character was still inside me. Yeah. So when I unleashed him, it was like we had just finished filming the other movie.
Right.
And just kept right on going. That part I thought was lovely.
It was excellent.
Bill, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a true honor to sit down and talk with you.
Thank you so much.